begin today the Gemara at the top of Daf Samach Zayin Amud Aleph, 5 lines down from the top of the Yomud. So the Gemara here brought an answer of Rab Zayda that said that, we're talking over here about the kinyonim that are possible by Geneva. When you kain it in different ways, that you won't have to return the object itself, you only have to pay the money, the value of it. So one of the things the Gemara mentioned was Shinui Hashem. If the item changes, that its title changed, so then you kain it and you don't have to return it. But Rab Zayda said, if it's a Shinui Hashem, achizil libriyasai. If it changes its name because you built a beam into the house, that was the example the Gemara brought. Before it's called a beam, now it's called a house. But the fact that you can disassemble it and you can take out the beam and then it'll be a beam again, so that's a kind of shinui that you're not going to be kaina with it. Okay, so now the Gemara asks on this. Shinui Hashem she'eino chayzel libriyasai mi have shinui. So is it true that when there's a change of a name, and that is a permanent change and it doesn't go back to the way it was before? Is this considered to be a change that you will be kind of this? But v'harei tzinner. But when it comes to a tzinner, a pipe, the meikarek tzitzta. Before, we're talking here about a wooden pipe. So before it was just a piece of wood. And now you carved it out and it became a pipe. And it's a total change in name. And once you carve it out, it's not going back to being the piece of wood that it was before. Tanya, we learned about this in a Braise regarding the halacha of a mikveh. So one of the basic halachas regarding a mikveh is when you have drawn water, mayim she'uvim, it goes into the mikveh, so it passes the mikveh. The halacha is that if there's 3 lugim of mayim she'uvim that makes up this mikveh, then it becomes pasul. So the Braise here says about this. So the mayim shuvim doesn't only mean literally drawn water with a bucket, but anyway, the water flows into this mikveh and it comes through a pipe that is also a form of a keli, has some kind of a vessel, and it turns the water that goes through it into mayim shuvim, drawn water. So you have here at Sinner a pipe. Shechakokai. So first the person took this piece of wood and he carved it out to make it a pipe, and then he affixed it into the ground. And then the water flows on that and it goes into the mikveh. Paisel is a mikveh, so that passes the mikveh. Kavai, however, if he first affixed this into the ground, and then he carved it out to be a pipe, then in a paisel is a mikveh. It doesn't passel the mikveh, because then it's not considered to be a keli. Once it's already placed into the ground, it becomes part of the ground itself, and then the water that flows through it is just like flowing in a crevice in the ground. It's not when it was a keli before you placed it into the ground. Then even after you place it into the ground, the water that flows is flowing on a keli. But if you first placed it, fixed it into the ground, it's not going to passel the mikveh. Now the question here is, if you're going to say that a change of name is significant, that it's like a new thing, if so, afil a kavai, even if you have fixed it into the ground first, but then afterwards you carved out this piece of wood to turn it into a pipe, nami lipasul. It should still also be pasul, because yet when you have fixed it into the ground, it's part of the ground, and but it has one name, it's called a kitzitzte. But then the moment you carve it out, it becomes like a new entity. And now you're forming it into a keli right now. So that itself should be a new thing, that it's a keli, and the water flowing through it is flowing in a keli. It has a new name. It's called now tsinaira, a keli. So it should be pasul. So here you see that even though it has a Shinui Hashem, it doesn't matter. It's still, we say it's affixed in the ground, and the water flowing in it is not pasul. It's interesting because over here, the Gemara is asking this question regarding a Shinui Hashem, but the Rishonim ask that this is also a Shinui physically in the item itself. You're changing the Shinui Maisa, you're changing it from just being a piece of wood into becoming a pipe. So the Gemara should ask that just because the physical change should be something that turns it into a keli. Why is the Gemara only asking mitzad Shinui Hashem? So the Rishonim say that because it's already affixed into the ground, so the Shinui Maisa doesn't matter. But the Shinui Hashem, the Gemara still holds the Shinui Hashem does matter, and it should passel the water flowing in it. So the Gemara answers Shani Shi'iva. Here, the case we're talking about, the water that flows in it, that goes into the mikveh, the whole psul of these waters that flow into the mikveh, the psul of these mayim she'uvim, is only a psul midrabanan. Minatayre, the mikveh would still be kosher. So since it's only a psul midrabanan, so therefore they were lenient about this, that even though there is a Shinui Hashem here when you carve it out, nevertheless the water that flows in it is not going to passel the mikveh. So here there's a Rashi, there's a famous Rashi here, because Rashi here says that this she'iva we're talking about over here is when there's 3 lugim of this drawn water of Mayim She'uvin that's making up this mikveh. But so it's mashma from this Rashi that if the entire mikveh is made up of Mayim Shuvim, then it is a psul min atayra. The psul min derabbanan that our Gemara says regarding Mayim Shuvim is only if it's rainwater. But there's 3 lugim of Mayim Shuvim of it, then it's going to be a psul min derabbanan. But the Gemara asks on this, if that's the case, that Rabbanan will lenient about this, because in this case it's only a psul min derabbanan. So I'll fill the reisha nami. So even in the reisha as well, where he carved it out before he affixed it into the ground. So the water that flows through it, once you affix it into the ground, should also not passel the water. And says the Gemara, it's different. Hasam iketayris kliyalav betalish. Over there, if you create it into a pipe before you affix it into the ground, when it's detached, it's an entity for itself. So then, even after you affix it into the ground, it's a keli and it passes the water. Hacha ain't tayris kliyalav betalish. Over here, it's not a keli before you affixed it into the ground. So once you put it into the ground and then you carved it out, so even though there's a shini Hashem, it doesn't matter. Chachamu will mekel, and the water that flows through it will be still kosher. Meisvei, the Gemara asks from another brayse where it says Haganev, v'Hagazlin, v'Ha'anes. Person that steals, or a gazlin, or a robber that comes openly, or a anes, a person that takes things by force. He pays for it, but he takes it by force. So all these people, when they take an item, hekdishan hektish, if he then goes ahead and is makdish it becomes hektish. Trumasan trume, it becomes trume. If you took this, if it's produce, and you separated trume of it, it becomes trume. Masreisa meiser, if you separated meiser of it, the meiser takes effect as well. So the question over here is, how does the truma, the meiser, how do all these things take effect? The question that the Gemara is asking over here from this brayse is going back on the argument that we had before on Daf Samach Vav between Rabba and Rav Yosef, where the Yush is kaineh by gneva. So over here, the pshat in this brayse is that the person stole this, and the owner is miyai, she gave up on it, and therefore you acquire it, you keep the item itself, and you only have to pay back the money. And therefore, if you're going to be makdish it, or take truma from it, or ma'isa from it, it takes effect. That's what you see over here. So from here you see that Yush is kaineh. This is a question on Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef said before that Yush is not kaineh.
Who gave the hektish, the ganef?
Yeah. The ganef is makdish, this object that he stole. Rashi here actually regarding hektish says that it's after he's makdish it, you're not allowed to have hanoah from it, like every hektish. It's mashma from Rashi that you can't bring it as a carbon. But it's also to have a no from it. It's the chayre. The reason is because it's still a mitzvah haba ba'aveda. That's what it's mashma and Rashi here. Okay, so the Gemara answers that in this case it's different. That over here, Amri, they answered Hasam ikeshini Hashem. Over there, when you're a makdishit, or you give truma or maisris from what you stole, so it's not only yiyush, but besides that, there's now also a change of title here. The meikare tivla. Before, the produce that you did not take ma'aser from or truma from it, it's called tevel, which is untithed. V'hashta truma, and now has a new name, it's called truma. Or hektish is meikar chulin, v'hashta hektish. Before it was called chulin, and now it's called hektish. So because there's 2 things together, the yiyush and the shini Hashem, that's why it takes effect. Okay, but this is hard to understand. The Rishonim asked this question, that what gives you the ability to be makdisher or take the truma or the ma'aser in the first place? It only, you could only do it because it's yours, and it's only yours, not with the Yush alone, but with the change of the name, which only happens after you are makdish. Okay, so the Rashba says, it's hard to understand this, but the Rashba says that it happens simultaneously. The moment when you're makdish, so you're creating a shini Hashem, and with that you're kainit, b'fasachas. It's hard to understand exactly how that works, but that's what the Rashba says about this. Okay. Sagt the Gemara, Amar Rav Chiste, Amar Rav Yonason. This is going back again to the same discussion that began in Daf Samach Vav regarding the kinyanim that can be by a geneve, that you acquire it and you only pay back money. So he said, what's the source that if there's a change, a physical change in the object that you stole, that it's a kinyan? Shenema, the pasuk says, we quoted this before already, first it says, return the gzela. What does the pasuk add? Asher gozal, which you stole. What it's saying is, if the item you stole has the same condition as it was when you stole it, you have to return it itself. But in lav, otherwise, it is a shinoi, so then domim ba'alme ba'ishlomi. So then you only pay the money for it, and you can keep the object itself. That was the drosha. Now this the Gemara asks, Hi Asher Gozal. These extra words of Asher Gozal. This is what we learn from it. We learn something else. Mibaya, that is, don't we need is to learn out from here. L'mu'ute gezel aviv she'enem ma'asav chaimish al gezel aviv. The Gemara later in the Masechta here learns out from this that if it's a father that had an object as a shomer and he swore falsely about it, and then, as we learned already before, the halacha is that after he's maided, that he swore falsely about it and he wanted to keep it for himself, that he has to pay it back, he has to add a chaimish, and he has to bring a carbon asham. So here, this extra word of Asher Gazal is coming to say the one that you stole. If you were the one that swore falsely for this, you have to pay. But not if the father did it, and then the father dies, and the son inherits his things, he does not have to pay back this chaimish and so on. That's what you're darshan from Asher Gazal. So how can we say here that we're darshaning from Asher Gazal that if there's a shinui, that you're kaina and you only pay money? Answers the Gemara, because you can learn two things out of here. Because you could just say it all in one word. Instead of saying Ve'eshav es hagzeilo, you could just say Ve'eshav es gzeiloi. That only the one that stole, he's the one that has to pay, or the father that swore falsely, he's the one that has to pay, and not a son. Asher Gazal, the Torah first says Ve'eshav es hagzeilo, and then it adds Asher Gazal Lomali. Why is it written in this way? Lomali lamichtav, that is Shma Mino Tarti. So I can learn out both things, both drashas from this. There was another version to this, and the conclusion is the opposite. From where do you know that if there's a change in the physical condition of the object that you stole, there's no kinyan? You still have to give it itself back. Shenemar, the pasuk says, "Ve'heshav is gzeila, return the gzeila, mikol makan." And from this we learn out, regardless of what condition that it's in. According to this version, so the question was asked, but v'haksiv asher gazal. The pasuk afterwards says asher gazal, which means that it's extra words that says that you return it only if it's like it was when you stole it, but not if there's a change. That says the Gemara, no mi bayalei. Those extra words, what it's coming to say is al gezeloi shaloi ma'asav chaimish ve'ma'asav chaimish lo gezel aviv. The drasha we said before to say that only a father, the person himself that swore falsely, he has to pay a chaimish, and not a son that inherits from him has to pay that chaimish. So there's no place for two drashas according to this version. So shina is not kind of exela. Omar Ule said, going back to the discussion regarding Yush, if the owner gives up hope on this item that was stolen, is that a kinyan by exela? So Ule said, Minayin liyush she'ena kaina. From where do we know that Yush by gneve is not kaina? Shenema, because the pasuk says regarding a carbon, vehevesem gozel. You bring a carbon which was stolen, or a sapiseach, a carbon that is limping, yeah. That's a chayla, and an animal that's sick. So piseach and chayla are animals that have a blemish that can never be brought as a carbon. So when the pasuk says these two things, that you bring an animal which is stolen or that's limping that has a mum, we compare them. Gazel dumya de piseach. A stolen animal can't be brought as a carbon similar to an animal that's limping. Ma piseach the less later kanta klal. Just like the limping animal is an animal with a mum, and there's no way to rectify this. It can never be brought as a carbon. Af gazel the less later kanta. So too, when you steal something, there's no way to rectify this. It cannot be brought as a carbon. And that's loishna lefnei yish, loishna achayish. It will be no difference if it's before the owner is miyayish from this or after he's miyayish. You do not acquire it that it should be yours, that you can bring it as a carbon. It's not yours. That's the source from the pasuk over here. Okay, so here there's a huge machlokes rishonim. I just want to mention the kitzur, the big taistos here, and many rishonim speak about this. What Ula is saying. According to Rashi, not here, Rashi and Gittin and Rabbeinu Tam and Taisvis, when Ula here says that Yush is not kaina, he actually doesn't mean to say that Yush is not kaina by every gzeila. Really, Ula holds Yush is kaina by gzeila. But what he's trying to say is, even though you are kaina it, but as a carbon, you still can't bring it. And the reason is because it's going to be a mitzvah haba ba'aveda. The fact that you're kaina, it doesn't change the fact that this was a stolen item, and therefore it's still a mitzvah haba ba'aveda, a mitzvah that comes from an aveda. You can't be bringing it as a carbon. And he's bringing over here this pasuk of Gazel Dumi de Piseach as a source for this Indian. This Indian is brought in different places. In Gittin, it's brought also in Sukkah, in the beginning of the Perek of Lulav HaGazel. That's one opinion on this. Another opinion on this in Taisvis is, which is the Shit of the Ri, he says, no. Ula must be saying that you're never kaina the gzeila, not only over here regarding a carbon. Because if you are kaina the gzeila, then there wouldn't be even a problem of mitzvah baba veda. Mitzvah baba veda is only if, while you're doing the mitzvah, there's still an inyan of aveda here. Once you're kainit and now it's yours, even if it came from an Aveda, but if now you're kainit and it's yours and all you have to do is pay back the money, so it would be yours and you don't even have the issue of mitzvah baba Aveda either. So therefore, Ula must be saying that you never kainit this gzeila, not only here but ever. And therefore, over here, it cannot be brought as a carbon. And it still will be an issue of mitzvah baba Aveda. That's the second shot in this. Okay, now the Gemara says, brings back a drasha that we had before on Daf Samach Vav. Rava Amar, Rava says, the source for this concept is mehacha from another pasuk. Karbanoi v'loya gazel. When the pasuk says, karbanoi, that has to be yours. And the Braisa learns out from this. Not if it's stolen. This is where it's telling you that even if the owner was miyayish, you're not kainit and you can't bring it as a carbon, as he explains. Amos, when is this drasha talking about? If it's before the owner was miyayish on this, so then pshita, obviously you can't bring it as a carbon because it's not even yours to be makdish at all. So lama likra, what do I need the pasuk for? It's talking about after the owner was miyayish. What the pasuk is saying is karbonai v'lo yagazol. Even after he's miyayish, it's still not yours. And you can't bring it as a carbon. This is the proof for this from this pasuk. Gemara asks on this drasha of karbonai v'lo yagazol was brought already before on Daf Samach Vav. We learned it yesterday. And there, the Gemara said different. V'harave hu da'ama. Rave before said regarding this pasuk that it's talking about something completely different. The gazal carbon de chavre. It's not talking about a person that just steals a plain animal and then wants to bring it as a carbon, but it's talking about an animal that was already made hektish by someone else. It's already prepared for a carbon by your friend. And you steal this carbon from him. That's what it's talking about. A completely different Indian. So over there, in that case, Rashi said over there that if it's already in the possession of hektish, obviously yish won't work because once something belongs to hektish, it's always in the rishus of hektish, and you stealing it is not going to change that. That's one pshat in Rashi before. But the point is, Ravi before said a different pshat. So why over here is he saying this pshat? Says the Gemara, two answers. So either we'll have to say that Rav Taka had charata, he retracted the pshat that he said before. Or we have to say, Chad Minayu, one of these statements, whether before and Daf Samach Vav or what we're learning now, is Rav Papa Amra. It was Rav Papa that said it and not Rava. Rav Papa was actually a student of Rava, so one of them was Rav Papa, so it's not a contradiction in Rava itself. Okay, the Gemara now comes back to the first Mishnah here in the Pedic. What did it say in the Mishnah? Umidas tashlume arba v'chamisha v'chulu. The Mishnah there said, this whole halacha, if you steal an animal, and then you slaughter it or sell it, that you have to pay 4 or 5 times as much. If it's an ox, you pay 4 times as much. If it's a lamb, you pay 5 times as much. It's only if it's an ox or a lamb. It doesn't apply to any other animal that you steal. Says the Gemara V'amai, but why doesn't it apply to any other animal? Why don't we compare and learn out the word shayr that it says over here? Kiyignav is shayr. And then it says by Shabbos also, so why don't we learn out from there, from Shabbos? And we had this earlier here in the Masechta, that regarding different places in Torah, where it talks about animals, that we always learn out from Shabbos, for example, by Kalayim and other things, we learn out from Shabbos that it doesn't refer only to a shayr. We say as follows, Ma'ala halon, just like by Shabbos, it's chaya, v'oy, v'chayetze behen, it includes any wild beast or even birds, and anything else, afkan, chay, v'chayetze behen. So here as well, the halacha of paying back, dalad v'hei, should apply also to any other animal, not only to a shayr or a seh. Amar Rave, so Rave answered for this. Amar Kra, shayr v'seh, shnei pamim. The Torah here says the term shayr and seh, the ox and the lamb, twice, and therefore we know shayr v'seh in. That's coming to say that it's only by the shayr and the seh, midiyachrin eloi. Not by no other animal does this apply. Okay, so now here the Gemara is going to go through a lengthy discussion to explain the repetition of shayr v'seh. How is it actually extra? So you have here the pasuk on the side of the Gemara. What does it actually say in the pasuk? You have to see over here because the Gemara is going to go through this in detail here. It says ki yignev ish shayr seh utvachayay mecharay. So he steals either a shayr or a seh, and he either slaughters it or he sells it. And then it says again, chamisha bakar yishalem tachas hashayr. 5 cattle you sell. You have to give back. That is instead of the ox that you stole, and v'arba tzayin tachas haseh. And 4 flock of sheep instead of the seh. So it says in the pasuk twice, shayr and seh. But the Gemara now is going to ask, but still it doesn't seem like there's anything extra here. Frek the Gemara, Omri, they asked on Rava's answer here. Hai miyater. Which shayr and seh the pasuk here is extra? Ilay mishayv said the seife. are you going to say that it's the second time when the pasuk says that tachas hashoyer and tachas haseh over there it's extra? Because you're suggesting that the Torah should just write as follows: Ki yignoiv shoyer iseh utvachayim oy mecharay, and then in the end of the pasuk it should say chamisha bakar yishalem tachtov v'abasayin tachtov. So just say the word tachtov. It doesn't have to spell out shoyer and seh because they said it in the beginning. That's so that's extra. But the Gemara, nobody asked on this. If that's what the Torah would write, then I would maybe say that you just put it all together. Maybe what the pasuk is saying is that if you steal an ox or a lamb, so then you have to pay for either one of them, both. You have to pay chamisha bakar and chamisha tzayin, which or abat tzayin that is, which is together 9. You have to pay 9 times as much for what you stole. Maybe I would put it together. I wouldn't know to separate the shoyer and the seh. For every time you stole, you have to pay 9 times. So it has to say separately tachas hashoyer and tachas haseh, that it's to divide them. Now, if you'll argue back and say, no, you wouldn't think to put it together that you have to pay 9 times because like siv tachtov, it says twice the word tachtov. Chad tachtov miyater, so one of them is extra. So doesn't that show that you divide it, that you pay 5 times for the shoyer and 4 times for the set? Says the Gemara, no, but the fact that it says extra tachtov would not teach me this, because that extra tachtov teaches something else. The Tanya, as we learned in the Braisa, Yachal, I would think, gonav shoyer shavim moneh. You steal a nice, big, expensive shoyer that's worth a moneh. You shalem tachtov, so he could pay, if he has to pay 5 times as much for the shoyer, so he pays, what does he do? He pays negidin. He pays these very meager oxen that are about to die, and he's yaitze to pay back with that. So the Torah says, no, you can't pay back that way. Talmud loima tachtov, the Torah says twice tachtov. You can't just give back any ox. It has to be something which is good quality, like what you stole. So the repetition of tachtov here is not extra. So again, the point is, if we would just say tachtov and without specifying shoyer and seh again, you wouldn't know that you pay 4 times for the shoyer, or 5 times for the shoyer and 4 times for the seh. So therefore, the Gemara tries the other way around. Elo, maybe I would say shoyer v'seh dereishim yuter. Maybe when it says in the beginning of the pasuk the term shoyer and seh, maybe that's extra. And the Gemara explains why. The nichtav rachmane, let the Torah write, ki yignoiv ish utvachayim acharay. Person steals and he slaughters or sells. Chamisha bakar yishalem tachas hashoyer. So you pay 5 times for the shoyer, v'abat sayin tachas haseh, and 4 times for the seh. So from the end of the pasuk, it's already understood that what the beginning of the pasuk is talking about is stealing a shoyer or a seh. It doesn't have to spell it out. But the Gemara asks on this as well. If the Torah would write this way, I would think to say, maybe ad the gonev today, v'tovach lahu. Maybe when the pasuk here is saying that he has to pay 4 times for the shoyer and for the seh and 5 times for the shoyer, that's only if he steals both of them. The Torah has to spell out in the beginning that it's talking about that he stole only one of them. So it does have to say that he stole one of them, and then it has to also say in the end that he pays back only for one of them. You have to divide it in the end as well. So both are not extra, not in the beginning and not in the end. But the Gemara says, no, maybe we could still say that the shoyer and the seh in the beginning of the pasuk is extra because utvachayksiv, it uses a singular term, that he slaughtered one animal. So you can't say that if it wouldn't say shoyer and seh in the beginning of the pasuk, you would think that he has to steal and slaughter both of them. But okay, so therefore it is extra in the beginning of the pasuk. But the Gemara now asks, "Ve'ema ad gonev tarvayu umaz ben lahu." But maybe regarding the selling, when it says if you sold it, that you have to pay, maybe over here it means if it wouldn't spell out shoyer separately and seh separately, I would think only if you stole and sold both of them. So the Gemara says the same thing. It uses a singular term, so I would know lachad, that's only one of them. But the Gemara still asks, if it wouldn't say in the beginning of the pasuk shoyer and seh, I would still say hava mineh ad gonev today, because it doesn't spell out shoyer and seh separately. So then I would say maybe you only have to pay back 4 or 5 times as much if you stole both of them, and then v'tovach chad, he shechted one of them, and then when it says oy mechari, it means umas ben chad, and he sold one of them. Then the pasuk is saying that you pay back 5 times for the shoyer and 4 times for the seh. So the Gemara says, no, I wouldn't think that either. Why? Because oy mechari ksiv. It says in the pasuk oy separates. You can't say that he stole both, and he's only chayiv if he stole both and he shechted one and sold the other. It says oy, or But still, the Gemara asks, if it wouldn't say clearly Shayr and Seh in the beginning of the pasuk, Vakati have a minute, maybe I would think to say Adagon of Tarvayu, that he's only chayav if he stole both a Shayr and a Seh. V'tovach chad, and then he shechted one of them, u'mishayr chad, and the other one he didn't do anything to it. Oy maz bin chad, or when it says oy mechari, it means he stole both and he sold one of them, u'mishayr chad, and he leaves the other one. Maybe that's the only time that you would be chayav to pay the dal v'hei. So the kitzur, the point there is both in the beginning of the pasuk and in the end of the pasuk, it has to say Shayr and Seh. So the Gemara says, Elo, it does have to specify in the beginning of the pasuk, but it doesn't have to say both Shayr and Seh, both in the beginning and in the end of the pasuk. Why? Shayr the Sefer, when it says Shayr in the end of the pasuk, and V'seh the Reisha, when it says Seh in the beginning of the pasuk, miyater, that's extra, because the Nichtav Rachmana, the Torah could write as follows: Ki yignev ish Shayr utvachai oy mecharai. So it spells out Shayr, so you see from that the Geneva is only from the Shayr. It doesn't have to be that you stole both of them. And then in the end of the pasuk, you could say Chamisha Baki Yishalem Tachtov. That's over there. You could say Tachtov without saying Shayr. And then Va'arbat Soyin Tachas Haseh. And then over there it says Arbat Soyin Tachas Haseh. So just by writing the word Seh, you know that you're paying just for the Seh. Shayr the Sefer, when it spells out Shayr again in the Sefer, and V'seh the Reisha. Lamali, why does the Torah have to repeat both Shayr and Seh in the beginning of the pasuk and in the end of the pasuk? So therefore it's extra, and that teaches me that this halach of being tal v'hei applies only to an ox and a lamb and not to any other kind of animal.